Okay, imagine this for a second. You're a citizen of one country, say Jamaica. You've been convicted of a crime abroad, in the U.S. Then suddenly, the U.S. deports you. But here's the twist. Not back home to Jamaica. No. Instead, you're flown to a third country, a country you have, well, zero connection to. And this place, it's known for having a pretty concerning human rights record. I mean, sounds like something out of a movie, right?
It really does. It's a scenario that immediately throws up huge red flags. And it's precisely this deeply unsettling incident we're going to dive into today. We're talking about a recent, very controversial situation. It involves the U.S. deporting 5 individuals, one of them identified as a Jamaican citizen. Yeah. And they were all sent to the southern African nation of Eswatini.
Right. And the core questions here, the things that make this so baffling and what our research keeps pushing us towards, are these. Did the Jamaican government actually refuse to take back its own citizen? I mean, did that really happen? And if it did, what does that even mean? What are the implications for, constitutional rights, for international law? Our mission today really is to try and navigate these legal gray areas, the human rights issues wrapped up in this unique and frankly mind-boggling situation.
Yeah, and to really grasp the initial shock here, you have to consider the claim made by a U.S. official. Tricia McLaughlin, the Homeland Security Assistant Secretary, she publicly stated these deportees were considered so uniquely barbaric, that was the phrase used, so uniquely barbaric that their own home countries refused them entry, refused to take them back.
Wow. That's a heavy statement.
It is, and it immediately puts Jamaica, among others, under a harsh spotlight. It raises just a whole host of questions about their responsibilities.
Okay, so let's dig into the specifics a bit. What exactly happened? The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, they said 5 individuals were deported from Vietnam, Cuba, Yemen, Laos, and the one we're focusing on, Jamaica. They were described as violent criminals and sent to Eswatini, which, for anyone listening who might not know, Eswatini is a small, landlocked kingdom down in southern Africa. And the crucial point here is that none of these men, reportedly, had any known ties, legal, ethnic, cultural, nothing to Eswatini.
Right. And while our focus today is kind of drilling down on the questions this raises for Jamaica specifically, because it seems so unprecedented, it's worth remembering similar complex issues pop up for the other nations involved too, Vietnam, Cuba, Yemen, Laos.
Absolutely. But that claim from Assistant Secretary McLaughlin about them being so uniquely barbaric, their home countries rejected them.
Yeah, that really puts the pressure squarely on Jamaica, doesn't it? Because if Jamaica did refuse entry to one of its own citizens, well, that immediately calls into question some fundamental constitutional protections under Jamaican law.
Okay, break that down for us. What does that mean practically for the individual? If you're a Jamaican citizen, what rights do you have in a situation like this under the Constitution?
Right, and this is where it gets really fundamental. Under the Jamaican Constitution, citizenship isn't just a label. It's a protected right. And what that means, in practice, is the government has a core duty, a duty to protect its nationals, even if they're abroad, even if they've been accused or convicted of crimes, especially when it comes to their right to return home, to actually enter their own country.
And that applies even if they've committed a serious crime overseas, that right still holds.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
It's not just Jamaican law either. We're talking about established principles in international law. Article 13 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is pretty explicit. Everyone has the right to return to his country. Full stop. So, if the Jamaican authorities did explicitly refuse this individual, you could certainly argue it's a breach of, well, due process and a breach of their constitutional duty. Due process here, meaning, basic fairness in how things are handled legally.
Yeah.
Like, was the person told where they were being sent? Did they get a chance to object? Were the risks assessed?
I see.
And there's really no existing law or precedent in Jamaica that allows the government to just unilaterally strip citizenship or deny entry based on what happened in another country's court. The crime committed abroad, however serious, doesn't just erase that fundamental right of return.
Okay, so given those core legal ideas, the next obvious question is, what about the destination itself, Eswatini? Because this whole practice, sending people to countries not listed on the deportation order, not their home country, these third country deportations, they've been controversial for a while, haven't they?
Exactly. This isn't something that just happened out of the blue. Third country deportations are, well, let's say a contentious tool. Governments sometimes use them when sending someone directly home is politically awkward or logistically complex. But they often push right up against the boundaries of international legal norms.
Right.
And in this specific case, what we've learned makes it even murkier. Apparently, Eswatini has no known bilateral treaty with Jamaica covering deportations.
No treaty. So what does that mean for the person deported? Their legal standing, their safety?
It means a serious lack of clarity, a lack of structure around due process for the deportee. We have to ask, was this Jamaican national even told he was going to Eswatini beforehand? Was he given any time or maybe legal help to challenge that destination? And critically, was there any assessment done to see if he faced a risk of persecution or even torture in Eswatini?
And if the answer to those is no,
Well, if the answer is no, then the deportation itself could very well violate international human rights law. Things like the Convention Against Torture. Both the U.S. and Jamaica are parties to that convention. And it basically prohibits states from sending people to countries where there's a substantial risk they'll be tortured. It's a principle called non-refoulement.
and the choice of Eswatini specifically, that immediately rings alarm bells. It used to be called Swaziland. It's an absolute monarchy. Human rights groups have documented, well, a lot of concerning things there. Violent suppression of dissent, activists being assassinated, mass arrests, very limited legal protections for people.
And that context is critical.
Yeah.
Because in an absolute monarchy like Eswatini, individuals, especially foreigners, with no legal status, they have virtually no recourse, no real protection against potential abuse. They become incredibly vulnerable. Risk of detention, mistreatment. They could effectively just disappear with no way to challenge anything. It's quite striking that even Eswatini's own government apparently referred to these men as inmates in transit. Okay, saying they were being held temporarily with plans for eventual repatriation back to their countries of origin.
Which just brings us right back around to the central mystery, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the plan was eventual repatriation, why wasn't the Jamaican deportee just sent back to Jamaica directly in the first place?
Exactly. And the silence from Kingston, from the Jamaican government on this whole affair is, well, it's quite telling, isn't it? The information we've looked at highlights that, look, if Jamaica did actively refuse repatriation, it wouldn't be the very first time a country has maybe, succumbed to international pressure or just quietly look the other way when it comes to problematic removals. But this specific act, if it's confirmed, refusing your own citizen entry and allowing them to be sent elsewhere, that would set a really dangerous precedent.
Yeah, it implies, what? That another government could just deport a Jamaican citizen to some random third country they have no link to, and Kingston might just not intervene, not even question it.
Precisely. And what's particularly troubling is the apparent complete lack of any public statement. From Jamaica's Ministry of Foreign Affairs or National Security, or even the Prime Minister's office, nothing on this specific case. And silence in a situation like this, it doesn't really feel neutral, does it? It could signal possible complicity, or maybe at the very least, a serious lapse in fulfilling its duty of care to its citizens.
So, pulling back a bit, looking at the bigger picture here, our deep dive into this really shows that, okay, regardless of this individual's criminal past, the core issues here are fundamental questions about citizenship itself, about accountability, and about due process.
Absolutely. Every state, it has a fundamental duty to ensure its citizens, yes, even those convicted of serious crimes, are treated according to basic standards of justice, both nationally and internationally. Failing to challenge or even just publicly question this kind of deportation, it sends a profoundly troubling message, especially, when Jamaica often tries to position itself as a leader on human and civil rights within the Caribbean.
Right. Can a nation really champion human rights globally if it potentially neglects its basic duties to its own citizens when they're vulnerable?
That's the tough question this case forces us, and perhaps Jamaican authorities, to confront.
And so, as we wrap up this deep dive, those critical questions, they're still hanging there, aren't they? Why wasn't the Jamaican deportee returned directly home? That's number one. Did Jamaica formally, officially reject its own citizen? And if they did, under what legal authority could they possibly do that? And crucially, what steps, if any, is Jamaica taking now to make sure the citizen is being treated fairly in Eswatini?
The U.S. officials, they've made their claim public. Now, the integrity of Jamaica's own citizenship laws and arguably its moral credibility, it feels like it's really on the line here, especially as global pressure starts to build, and you can bet human rights organizations are asking or will be asking some very pointed questions.
And for you listening to this, beyond just this one specific strange case, this whole situation connects back to some truly fundamental ideas. What does citizenship actually mean? What is due process? And what responsibility does a state truly have, to its people abroad, no matter what they might have done in the past?
Yeah, and maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is this. This situation, It raises an essential question, really, for all of us in this increasingly interconnected world. Where does a nation's fundamental duty to protect its own citizens actually end, especially when those citizens are vulnerable, far from home, and accused of serious crime?